No, the economic impact, if they just put a copy button on that, like on a couple strategic places on the legislative website, would literally, I think we would hit like world peace, a new utopia.
Yeah.
Because things would just like, because so much of the time is, and I think it's just like that basic, like once you see it, you can't unsee it to a degree. So much of knowledge work and the digital economy is literally copying data from one source and structuring it in another source that you can then grok or share with others. And, you know, I'll call it the tyranny of inputs. Nothing makes me more grumpy than having to fill out a form. All you have to do is put one like attribute on an element to get my contact card to pop up. You refuse to do that. We still choose to put addresses on forms in the order of an envelope because that's what we pulled it from. No, you just need my zip code. There's a few places I don't have zip codes, turns out. But if you have my zip code, you now have 3 new fields, like, and it's just disdain for the end user. It's a lack of caring. I don't know what it is, but it's like such a simple thing to like help bridge people into ease that those things, I mean, nonstop, you just run into forms all the time and you're like, oh, I didn't do this just the right way for the machine because some group of different, like, I'm now also convinced, hot take, most VCs have mostly invested in form validation than any other innovation.
That's a good point.
Because you have to stop chaotic human beings from putting chaotic, malformed, wrong data into the wrong spot. Oh, I was supposed to type United States, not US. I was supposed to be Utah spelled out, not UT. It was supposed to be my phone numbers are like a whole other realm of chaos.
Parentheses or no, yeah.
And then maybe they were nice and they skip a beat, but then you try to backspace and now you're in this weird dance between what the engineer thought was a happy path and was functional for most people, and somehow I've got myself into a trap again. And I think it's like when you start to just take account of everything we've done, which is incredible, and we've unlocked all this stuff, you start to realize how much we've tried to mold humans to be more like a machine and input like a machine to interact with the machine.
I'm excited to talk to both of you.
Yeah.
Sunny, we've worked together on a number of things. You were our public policy committee chair, and then actually launched an organization called Utah Tech Leads.
Yes.
That still exists, and you're still the chair of, right?
Yeah, Liz Converse is the executive director, so she's in the day-to-day, got a good handle on it.
Good old Liz.
Yep.
And Zach, I've known you for a long time, from way back.
Hot minute.
Yeah. And so now you two are together, which is incredible. How did it happen?
Well, we were on this dating app. Just kidding. cofounderdating.com. I met Zach at Edison House at the grand opening through Kat Kennedy. I remember she had this like look when Zach walked in the room, like it was like a long lost brother she had seen, and she hugged Zach, and so I met him and his wife, and like it was weird that we hadn't met before then.
It was weird.
Yeah, because that was what 2022. Yeah. 2023. Yeah. And then Dan Caffey was like, hey, you and Zach should go to lunch. And I was like, okay. So we went to Edison House, had lunch, and we started talking, and we decided to work on stuff together. I was like really a lot of common friends, but a lot of common philosophies. And I really just was like excited to be building something again.
Yeah. I love that. Edison House is cool, huh?
Yeah,
it's an interesting place.
I feel like it's low stakes social environment. So my anxiety can be okay in there. So like tuck into a corner and be okay.
Yes.
But like still feel like you're in the like vibe. But then it's like when you go with like Sunny Anywhere, like everyone's just kind of there, and the amount of networking and connections that you can just tap into by just like leaning in a little bit or wandering to another spot is genuinely incredible.
Yeah, it's a great spot. I love it. I love going there, and we're going to hold some events there in Summit. But Zach, tell me your perspective on how all of this happened, how you got to where we are today.
That's a long and chaotic story. No, it was so we exited team to WeWork.
Mm-hmm.
Wild experience being inside of that beast, dealing with the C-suite over at WeWork. There's an Apple TV show, books, tons of articles about what went down. It was very unfortunate. We got divested. Still kept their commitments on the acquisition, though. That was really nice. And just started consulting and wandering around, waiting for contracts to end. And so they were coming to a close. I finally got out of my last contract that felt fairly restrictive on me doing anything. And went to Dan, and I was just like, I think I want to build something in this area I've been thinking about. And he's like, that is literally the dumbest idea. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And then I went back another week, and he was like, that is probably even worse than the last one you had. And then he said, go talk with Sunny. And I think having lunch, and then I think the other side is through that political aspect that she was engaged with. We went up to the Hill. We still were kind of SWAT. We knew we wanted to do something in AI because there was all these views and opinions about where that was going, and what we could accomplish in that together. And we started just watching how people were working, how they were engaging with policy. And it was mildly horrific. As someone who's heavily in tech, watching people discover Google Docs for the first time.
What do you mean? Legislators?
No, lobbyists,
everyone.
Business.
Oh, lobbyists?
Yeah,
everyone. They don't know what an Asana is. They don't know what a Trello is. You literally are speaking gibberish.
What do they use? Microsoft?
We were like, hey, do you have Slack?
Spreadsheets?
And they were like, oh, we just yell across the hall. I'm like,
or text message.
yeah. It's just the
Wow.
basics, email, text, and a phone. And that is the extent of it. And then it was this realization, this is a massive bubble that I've been echo chamber that I'm sitting in. And it doesn't take long in tech echo chamber.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long to wander over to another spot. You go to a family event and you watch people use an iPhone, and it's probably one of the most aggravating things. They're still force quitting the app, even though was an iPhone 1 through 3 problem with memory management. And you realize how much of the world is just a bunch of normies rocking the world in absolute normcore. They don't know what they just don't know. And I think the realization was how obtuse and ill-conceived some experiences are through software. And AI, in our view, isn't about generating random text and converting emails into Shakespeare. To us, it's the Steve Jobs touching the iPhone for the first time and introducing a paradigm shift in the human-to-computer interaction model, and said it should be more human. We're at the intersection of humanities and technology, I think is one of my favorite lines from that event. And AI unlocks more humanity in the machine, so we don't have to structure our code to fit neatly in a database when humans are so chaotic. And that's kind of the underlying thesis of what got us to this moment.
So what is Orca Panda? Tell us.
It's a vibe.
By the way, I love the phrase normcore. I don't know if I've ever heard normcore. That was good.
So I'm definitely the oldest person at the company, but Zach is very ingrained in pop culture. And so there's often times where I was like, okay, I need to make a mental note of that because I think that's a word that we use now. So
Look at the Gen Z version or the Gen X version.
Yeah, sometimes I have to ask my daughter. But no, I mean, Zach, you can explain Orca Panda because I think it's, really, when we say it's a vibe, there is this element of it's blobby, it's human, it's all of these things, but at its core, like it's all about giving people the ability to do human stuff because we're not doing robot stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
How that's executed, I think that's where what we're really excited about. But at its, Zach uses like, I'll think we're a success when we see people LARPing in the park and not attached to their phones or filling out a spreadsheet or things like that. So,
I'm trying not to get ranty, but I get really excited and I
Get
rabbit hole
ranty.
into
this
this.
is great content.
Yeah.
So
Get
go
ranty,
ahead,
please.
go for it.
So I think it's first of all, Orca Panda was a domain I bought forever ago. It was a back-end testing environment we had at Team, and then it got swept into acquisitions, and I had been begging for it back every few months. I would just message people and be like, "Can I have that domain back?" They finally give it back. We were building, these tools more geared at politics, and it was just like, man, this is like wild. There's something actually bigger underneath all of this. Because all of these individuals, the normies, who felt like technology was too inaccessible, even though we think about how easy it is, suddenly they could do things that were not imaginable. I'm going to a committee hearing. I need 5 bullet points in this context for this client, and it's there, and they are just on the move. And I think the other side is we decided to, everything has shifted. Therefore, the UI, UX paradigms have shifted. How we interact with everything has shifted. And what would happen if we just said, you send an email, you send a text, you do a phone call? That is the UI point. Also, normies, they barely have email set up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was getting them to download an app, plus me making an app and having to support. Apple's invested millions of dollars in messaging and email. I will never make, no matter what library or how brilliant I may think I am at code some days, I will never make a spreadsheet quite as good as Google, because billions of dollars have gone into that.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was this realization that what if we took chaotic, unstructured, conversational data and then structured it? And then what does that look like when you can build repeatable processes over and over without ever touching a user interface outside of natural language? So you go to a website, we'll do workflows and automation, and it's no code, but it's still systems thinking.
Oh yeah.
That is the dirty secret, is it says no code, but it's systems thinking. And you watch people try to set up a HomeKit automation to turn their lights on at sunset. It breaks in a week and they can't fix it. Maybe they've tried a Zapier, works for a month, and then it breaks because a variable changes in Jira, which is always the case, and everything downstream breaks. And they have to go in and think through logical steps of machine execution. And that is unfamiliar, that is uncomfortable, that is intimidating. And so they just have opted out of the revolution that we have experienced for decades now.
Right.
And so
It's actually kind of fascinating. I don't know that I realized that.
which part?
Just that, some people don't even have email. That kind of blew my mind.
I think that, Zach gets to see it for the first time at the Capitol, but then I got to experience it working in ed tech and just realizing that when you're in the classroom, you want a good teacher, and I had this experience one time where we were at another company where they had teachers taking a digital literacy test, and one teacher could not pass because she kept missing the questions on the operating system. And she was upset and said, "I don't think I should teach." And now I think about that, I was like, that was a little messed up that we were making a teacher what does it that has no ability, or it's not a reflection on her ability to teach. She wasn't teaching computer science or anything like that. But that was the expectation that we set for her. And I think that when tech people love to build tech tools for us.
Mm-hmm.
What would we use? What would make our lives easier? That's great. But we are such a small segment of the overall population that when you start to look back and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, people aren't using Jira. People aren't using Asana. They don't know what drag and drop means. They just want it to work. But
we would rather not engage because that just is complicating it.
Or like how when I hear people are not using email, I'm like, those are the greatest.
They don't have it connected on their phone.
So that is the coolest. Like I want to be that person.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice? Yeah.
I hate being in email. I hate being on these tech platforms. It actually sucks. It sounds like what they're doing is way better than what we do.
Yeah, but they still have to do, so, like at the Capitol, they still had to go to a website, look at bills, go get do that functionality. But they just didn't know what would make their lives a lot easier. So something that would take them 20 steps, we were like watching them and being like, I don't know why they're going it's going the long way, right? Making it harder on themselves.
Silicon Slope Summit is Utah's original and longest running grassroots tech event. It provides entrepreneurs, startups, and leaders the resources and community they need to succeed. With the pandemic behind us, we're excited to bring Silicon Slope Summit back to its original January dates in conjunction with the Sundance Film Festival. We have some unbelievable news. Silicon Slope Summit is free for all Utahns for the first time ever. You heard that right. Silicon Slope Summit is now free. For those looking for an upgraded experience, we are also offering VIP tickets for just $95. Thanks to our partners, sponsors, and government leaders, Silicon Slope Summit is the most accessible tech and startup event in the world. Summit will be hosted in multiple locations throughout the week in both Utah and Salt Lake Valley. There will also be a Startup Alley at Summit this year, where startups and entrepreneurs can meet with investors from around the world to pitch their ideas, receive feedback, and promote what they're building. Of course, we'll be bringing in world-class leaders and speakers, as we have in the past, but we'll also be hosting specific tracks and bringing attendees together for curated networking in a way never done before. You don't want to miss this year's summit. To register, buy VIP tickets, learn about sponsorship, and apply for your startup to be part of Startup Alley, go to siliconslopes.com/summit.
No, the economic impact, if they just put a copy button on that, like on a couple strategic places on the legislative website, I think we would hit like world peace, a new utopia.
Yeah.
Because things would just because so much of the time is, and I think it's just like that basic, like once you see it, you can't unsee it to a degree. So much of knowledge work and the digital economy is literally copying data from one source and structuring it in another source that you can then grok or share with others. And, I'll call it the tyranny of inputs. Nothing makes me more grumpy than having to fill out a form. All you have to do is put one attribute on an element to get my contact card to pop up. You refuse to do that. We still choose to put addresses on forms in the order of an envelope because that's what we pulled it from. No, you just need my zip code. There's a few places I don't have zip codes, turns out. But if you have my zip code, you now have 3 new fields, and it's just disdain for the end user. It's a lack of caring. I don't know what it is, but it's like such a simple thing to help bridge people into ease that those things, nonstop, you just run into forms all the time and you're like, oh, I didn't do this just the right way for the machine because some group of I'm now also convinced, hot take, most VCs have mostly invested in form validation than any other innovation.
That's a good point.
Because you have to stop chaotic human beings from putting chaotic, malformed, wrong data into the wrong spot. Oh, I was supposed to type United States, not US. I was supposed to be Utah spelled out, not UT. It was supposed to be my phone numbers are like a whole other realm of chaos.
Parentheses or no. Yeah.
And then maybe they were nice and they skip a beat, but then you try to backspace and now you're in this weird dance between what the engineer thought was a happy path and was functional for most people, and somehow I've got myself into a trap again. And I think it's like when you start to just take account of everything we've done, which is incredible, and we've unlocked all this stuff, you start to realize how much we've tried to mold humans to be more like a machine and input like a machine to interact with the machine. And it's to the point now that Apple said, look, you guys can't even handle your passwords, so you could just use your face or your fingerprint. Because you can't, you clearly are incapable of keeping yourself secure. Again, the economic cost of bad passwords is horrific.
Oh my God.
But humans just are not capable of making a hard password and not writing it on a sticky note. Or literally at RC Willie, there was a book that had like passwords and and it was just a book of your I'm like, what are we doing? It's going to be one sticky note in there, first of all.
Just a book full of passwords.
It's literally a book of it says like URL, password, username, page after page in alphabetical order with tabs. It's really fancy.
And they printed it.
And it was printed.
Yes. And bound.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing.
Not leather bound. But I think all of this has led to, humans are not machines.
Mm-hmm.
And we have forced teachers in Sunny's horrific deeds to the educators of this country.
I am so sorry.
But just because you can't make a module in LMS doesn't mean you are a bad teacher. Just because you can't.
Probably means you're a good teacher.
Probably means you're actually an amazing teacher.
Yeah.
But when technology can augment a good teacher, suddenly education is boundless. And I think that's the missing key is if a teacher really leans into the tech and uses it to not focus on grading every little thing, not doing, just doing all these tasks that take up time or are now foisted upon them because they need to type into a machine to account for stuff. If that can all go away, what does that unlock? And you can start to think through so many jobs and so many places where, what if we just stopped doing that robot work, like Sunny said? What if we could be more organic and messy and chaotic? What if we weren't having to manage our emails all day and we're getting nice summaries at the end of the day, or something can break through and make sure we see it in time? And maybe we will see a revival of third spaces. I worked at WeWork and a workplace thing, and there's just a death of community. There's a death of churches, clubs, lodges. Everything is dying because we isolate, and all we have in common now is political parties and identities, and we all hate each other because there's no other common place for us to gather. And as much as I love tech, I think AI is finally the love letter back that says, come as you are, be messy, and we will figure this out. And so with all that is Orca Panda. We believe that everyone should be able to just say, when I need to do the following thing, please do this and this and this, and get it out the other side. And Orca Panda can take human chaos, structure it, and then execute workflows in a consistent, even though AI, which is why engineers typically hate it, is because it's not deterministic.
Mm-hmm.
But this chaos, wrangle it in and get to an output further. It shouldn't be constrained to a co-pilot tied into like a bolt-on that someone had to do to appease shareholders. And so they hurried through some integration with OpenAI in. It should be, here's a business card, take a picture, send it through an email. And OrcaPanda knows what to do with that because it has enough context to understand what you're trying to do. And so you can hop into it and say, I will check my blog every single day, see if there's a new post. When there's a new post, generate a bunch of tweets, load them up into Typefully, and then I will review them there because human review is a very important part at this stage of AI. But now you just did and so when you post, you did the hard creation, something that humans really good at, connecting dots that others can't see, bringing a voice, bringing opinion. That's the critical work. You know this more than anyone.
Yeah.
There's just so much administrative work that you have to do. Like now I got to make TikToks on top of all this.
I know. I hate when people tell me I need to be on TikTok.
Yeah. What hashtags do I use? All of that.
Oh my gosh.
Like it's
that
wild.
stresses me out, actually.
Yeah.
But what if you could just say, hey, can you do this? And then it handles it. And if it breaks because a third party changes something, what if it could just self-heal and resolve itself? And so it's just, what if when you needed to connect your HubSpot, you didn't have to go fish through a marketplace and see their feature, do all this stuff. What if it just said, click this button and UI was generated contextually for a specified intent and outcome? And what if it was just a big button that said connect HubSpot? That's what it should be.
Yeah.
Because UI can be personalized, contextual, and 100% generated at this point.
So is it like empowering people to build their own AI agents? Would that be like a way to say it?
Yeah. So I saw a tweet, a post on X. Someone was posting a job about Agentic Architecture back in February. I was like, this is weird. So started figuring out what that meant. There's a great paper that's not fun to read called React, not the front-end framework, but it's Reason and Act. And basically all you do is you spin up a conversation with your first API call to OpenAI or whoever your provider is. And then you provided a tool and say, you're the manager. Here's a bunch of other things you can talk. Here's a bunch of other personas you can talk to. Go talk to them. And so when it gets stuck, it will look at the tool sets, which are these personas, and then it will go spin up another AI to have that conversation, right? That's the gist of agentic architecture. The problem with it is AI is statistics. It's just math. It's the most probable outcome. And so when we started to explore, and you're in politics, and you say, this is an email that came from here, and our system, the identifier is LMNOP. And the AI would get to work, and it was crazy and magical watching these
just autonomously,
reasoning through everything, and then coming out the other side and being like, I got this thing for you. I am now going to go give it back to you. The identifier is 1, 2, 3 ABC. And I'd be like, no, it's literally LMNOP. And no matter how much I prompt jockeyed and bashed my head, it had a really hard time keeping a hold of ABC 1, 2, 3. And most agentic stuff that you see in the market now is single shot, single step. So usually it's take some text and transform it into this other type of text. And what we realized is with some existing just kind of dev randomness that I was playing around with over the last little bit post-team, what would it look like if it could do multi-step consistently, accurately, and then deliver it into a system? Because even if you copy and paste, once again, your blog into ChatGPT and then have it generate 5 tweets, you're back in the business of, now you're in the business of this is my voice and this is my persona. And then having to then copy it from one box, putting it in the other box and clicking the other little box to do the job. And we just said, what if that didn't exist in the future? And what if the future was purely conversational? And what if you could just use the basics of email, phone, voice, text to then engage with the machine?
Yeah. Are you starting with politics? Like, is that kind of like the industry or is it just broad or?
You know, when Zach called me and we chatted through this, he said, listen, I think there's a broader application of all this tooling and infrastructure that it was built, you know, because for the politics side, we couldn't have it hallucinate. You couldn't send someone in with like fake talking points or made up information. I mean, so there was just so much work that he did to make sure that it was accurate and deterministic and, you know, and it delivered what it was supposed to do. We had to do all sorts of things to make sure it wasn't biased and, you know, all of these things. But when he called me and said, I think we need to explore what would it look like if it wasn't tied just to the legislative database. And it could be tied to any sort of database. And, you know, and what would that look like? And because I think we can serve a bigger market. And I was like, oh, you know, because, you know, when you're building, and especially like when you're raising money, you're like, this is our market. This is what we do. And this is, you know, you want to have that all defined up front. But I think one of the things that Zach and I, you know, the benefit of us having experience building companies is there are these signals that you look for. And this was a signal and it was worth pursuing. I had a high trust in Zach. So he's like, give me a few weeks to do this. And so I, you know, for that couple of weeks, I was like, you know, maybe we're going to pivot. I don't know what is going to come out at the end of it. It was a lot of discussions, a lot of Zoom calls and, you know, him experimenting with it. And when we came back, it was, okay, I think it's worth looking at a pivot. What does that look like? And exploring that. So we pivoted officially in July of this 2024. And then released a product, you know, for in September, an early beta product. But you know that, in hindsight, I think we'll be, you know, at that time, like the few weeks was like, I don't know what's going to happen, and it felt a little agonizing because it was just like the unknown. But also, like in hindsight, the fact that we were able to do that and execute it so quickly and recognize that there is a bigger opportunity,
pretty remarkable.
You know, I'm very proud of our ability to shift focus and kind of, because we always knew, you know, there were some fundamental things like, number one, we think AI should make people more human. We just want people to stop doing robot work. You know, what market that is, you know, that we look at all these, you go outside of politics, you look at any business owner, you look at sales teams, for example, like them just filling out their CRM, you know, they're spending like a majority of their day filling out fields in Salesforce and HubSpot and Googling information and trying to see like in LinkedIn, like who do I talk to? Like the amount of time that we just spend doing that is insane, even at tech companies.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
You're describing my day.
Yes.
Every day.
Yeah. And it's like, but what does it look like if we can help all these people? When you think about like sales team in particular, how many tech companies dedicate engineers to helping their sales teams optimize? None.
Yeah,
none. You make them do all the grunt work, or you might get a Salesforce administrator, or you hire a consultant and all of that, because you need whatever came out of the box, you needed it to be customized in a way that worked for your workflows, right? But what if we could give that power to them, that they didn't have to have an engineer, that they could go and say, hey, like, when I'm looking for talking to a customer, it's important for me to understand who their competitors are and be able to like get a competitive analysis really quickly, or know the last few things that they tweeted about, what's on their mind, what's the latest product development. That is a lot of power you can give to someone in a very and give it to them, you know, within seconds. It's pretty
having
magical.
to log into like 15 different things.
Yeah.
And you have 15 tabs open.
Totally.
And you're like, where am I?
When you didn't really want to log in, like I just needed to see it. Like the other noble truth I discovered in all this was CSVs are like the currency of the future. Everyone just wants a CSV export. You could have just immaculate UI, perfection, down to the pixel. Just give it to me in a CSV.
Yeah.
That's all they want, because they then are going to interpret it in a tool that they're more familiar with. Very rarely do you ever see people be like, what do they call it on first round? They have a systems of record, systems of intelligence is like the newer one. And then like there's another system, but very few companies are systems of record. Salesforce is a system of record. Slack is a system of record. Google. Anything we probably could have built is going to be, it's like a surface where it's like you are lucky to interact with the records, but you do not hold the record.
Yeah.
The records for this company. And so usually it's just a transitory, kind of what you like, I just need a transit in here to go pick up my CSV download and then hop on back out, or like wire it up so it delivers in the actual place I'm actually working, which is not in your well-designed but ill-conceived SaaS idea.
Yeah. I tried to fill out a form for the state recently for Summit, and it said upload a file, so I uploaded the file. And then there's another upload button that you needed to push to actually upload it into the system.
Oh, so there was a
so there's like
pre-upload.
30 minutes it took me to realize what that second upload button does. I'm like, why isn't this working? What's going on?
The error message you got was like, could not submit.
Yeah, it's like it just like you can't. Didn't work.
Yeah,
it's like that didn't work. I'm like, well, what is going on here? So that's crazy. But how has the product been going so far?
Yeah. So what's been really fun is, I get to talk with a lot of business owners, but then like sales leaders and all of that. And we just start with like, what is one thing you wish you didn't have to do anymore? And like, it is inevitably some sort of, no one says, I wish I didn't have to talk to customers, or I wish I could spend more time filling out my CRM or hunting for leads. It's never that. It's all this stuff where I'm like, and like write tweets, like I have a blog post and I need to come up with like TikTok ideas or whatever. And it's really fun to like sit down with them and say like, what if that could be done with you or for you? And all you had to do is send a text message or send a Slack or send, whatever. And it could just be executed. And they're like, you can do that? That is like a pretty magical feeling to like bring something like that to them. So in terms of like the tool, like we're still very early on, but we've got a customer who could generate, new customer lists and all of that within seconds. And it would have taken him 9 hours to put that together himself manually. So what we've given is people time. And that's
so valuable.
That is so valuable. That's more valuable than anything, is when you can give people time back so that they can go do things that really humans have to do. Can talk to customers, meet them, do face-to-face stuff.
You've both raised money throughout your careers. What was it like for this company with local VCs? I actually don't. Is it all local VCs or is there some? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so we've raised only really angel money at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a bit.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about it?
Maybe it's just the things that I think are interesting problems. When we were raising for a team, no one got what, like, oh, it's, a display on a wall. Like, what is it? And it's like, no, like there's a deeper cultural impact. And we're seeing it at literally every tech company that's on your phone using it. And they're like rolling out the red carpet when I show, like, I'm fangirling walking into these companies and they're telling me how I've shifted everything with this technology, but we didn't have repeatable cells and consistency. And especially at the time, and it seems like maybe even post crypto chaos, the appetite you really have in Utah, because there's not as much money swashing around as Silicon Valley, bets are a little less risky. And so something like Orca Panda, where they're like, where's the UI? And you're like, you literally can just like, do you want to do a phone call? And then they can't see all this stuff happening because it's, again, it's a shift we believe that's coming. It's just too far and too risky, because when you're at the apex horizon, there's a lot to be lost there. But there's immense upside if you can be there leading and ahead.
I think they'd be knocking down your door. Like, that's crazy. Like, why don't we get excited about these types of things? Why does it always have to be SaaS?
I think I heard a great description. I'm going to say it. Maybe you can delete it. Maybe I'll get hate comments. Utah is a great place to raise money when you're ready to hire that big sales team. And, us being early, and not that we haven't, we have great relationships with a lot of the event funds here. But we've raised angel money, and, we're looking outside of Utah to raise, this next round for the most part. Because they get that when we're thinking in the future, we're not building Orca Panda for software as it's used today in the vast majority. We have seen the future. We can't unsee it, as Zach has said. And so we know that this is where it's going. And so you have to be willing to take that risk and that bet that this is the way things are moving. I promise you, like, us building a UI, we'll eventually have like something light and everything. But our value is not in a pretty user interface.
Yeah.
Our value is in the output that we can deliver and the time that we can deliver it. And I think that is far more valuable than an app.
Yeah.
It's actual software.
Yeah.
As a service. It's an actual service.
Yeah.
And not a thin layer. But like, and that was like kind of, that would be not every, people like get it on some level, but it requires so much mental model. Like, especially in sitting as a VC, you're seeing just the same patterns and you're pattern matching. And so when we walk in and we're just like, it's this blobby, amorphous, organic thing you literally don't see, and it runs away from everything that we have done because we think that got us to so many incredible things like centralized data. None of this would be possible if we did not centralize it. We train generations of people to interact with the machines. Like, we have been priming everyone. When you walk in and just say, what if it all disappeared and we started over? And I started building in like 1999. I was like 13 when I built my first website. And it feels like that moment again. Like Gatorade, it's burned in my memory. Gatorade.com dropped a website, and suddenly everyone was calling me because I was the one nerd who was sitting at the public library because we were too poor to afford the internet, or running on AOL disk minutes to build a website on GeoCities or AngelFire. Just trying to get my cred here. But it was that, like, if you can think back to that moment of, oh, I need a website. And that fundamentally is going to shift everything. And if I'm a restaurant, I'm going to build an atrocious Flash website. And then we got to a new paradigm shift with dig.com is where I would place it, where I remember clicking the dig button the first time and the page did not reload. And I was like, this is witchcraft. It was a clever maneuvering of a protocol. And we had Ajax, which gave us Scriptaculous, which gave us jQuery, which then led us into mobile. And Steve Jobs standing on that stage and hitting the thing shifted it once again, because suddenly, and unfortunately in some cases, your email could be next to you 24/7. But ubiquitous mobile internet, if I rewound myself back to 2004, this is all sorcery and witchcraft. This was a dream, but like playing games in communities online, like all this real-time, incredible engagement experiences we can have just been there's just moments in time that you can point to and see it. And the fact that people continue to view AI purely through the lens of, I put in text and text comes out, maybe it's structured, I think is one of the bigger mistakes that people are approaching it with, and which leads to just bolting it in. Like, we now have AI. Like, now
there's a chat bot.
Update the website. We have a chat bot, which is just an API and shuttling information back and forth. That's great. But what happens when it's truly a user to human to computer interaction model shift change, like the iPhone? And what if you could just dissolve everything? And that is a very hard pill to swallow when you've just made bet after bet millions of dollars.
Well, you're kind of betting against your portfolio.
You are 100%, because suddenly everything is moot. And I would sit there, I would call Sunny at like 1 a.m. and I'd just be like, my brain is melting the deeper we get into this, because it is, so I like, can't tell, I love tech so much. And I think it's incredible and I'm obsessed. And having to self-reflect and introspect and say, you did the best you could with what you knew and what you could do.
Yeah.
We made websites out of tables back in the day, right? Like that was where it was at. And just realizing like how inaccessible and obtuse and how I forced people to get things just right so they wouldn't mess up my database. And the amount of time I cat mousing users to not be chaotic. And we would just talk and it would just be like, I can't, like, this is a really hard moment for me because I've been building for so long in these ways that what if we just rewound back to 1999 and we started over? And I think everything is up for grabs. I think everything has to be more human, viewing AI as a co-pilot or a chat, or even, and you can now maybe see why I push back on agent, because I think agents are a little bit more chaotic and single-minded, though they may be completing a singular task. But I think not looking at a future of compute where you don't touch a thing and you just ask, whether that's through text or voice or however, you then everything is gone.
That's so wild. That's actually so wild.
I think what's, Zach, and one of the things I really enjoy about working with Zach is he can see these things far in advance, because he calls me at 1 a.m. I'm like, I hear what you're saying. I don't know what to do with these thoughts, and I'm still like processing it. It might take me a couple weeks for me to like truly understand. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then you just start seeing, the same shit being built over and over again and getting funded and all of this stuff. And you just think, what are we doing, guys? We have this incredible tool in our hands. Why would we build like this? Why wouldn't we leverage what it's capable of? Why are we saying that our value is, like a feature is dark mode? Are you kidding me? Like that's like, that's not
worthy of a press release.
Like that's crazy talk, And, I even think about like even when I'm at Instructure, when we were really early, we were the first native cloud learning management system. And people were like, so we had to educate them on the cloud. And, at one time, I think there was a silly discussion, like, should we, embrace the cloud as our mascot or whatever? And it's like, no, because it's a utility. Like that now looks dumb because it was just a utility.
Yeah.
The feature was just being able to scale when there was like finals and all of these things, but not that the fact that we were using the cloud, And so I think it's like now with AI, it's like, well, you didn't make it better. You just added a box, like an empty box that you expect people to conversate with.
You described 5 years of tech investing, cloud, then, probably apps.
Yeah.
And then now it's AI. Well, you had this brief like blockchain. Everybody's a blockchain company, but that didn't last very long. Now everybody's an AI company, but they're not really.
No, I think that, people were like, oh, are you just a thin wrapper on a chat GPT? And, there's all of this. And I think you're going to get waves of like trends and everything. But what Zach and I think we've been building is something very fundamentally valuable in the sense that I think we will change the way people work.
Yeah.
And, we don't have to be all the tools. We can be on top of working with the other tools that deliver whatever output. But the ability for anyone to be able to customize based on their workflows and the tools that they use, and they don't have to be an engineer to do that, I think is pretty incredible. And all of a sudden you start to level up these companies that have been behind, that need technology, or people who need technology, they just didn't know how. I don't want my salespeople to know how to set up Zapier.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that the best use of their time? Probably not, So, being able to have that access, I think, is huge.
If you can get people off their phones and off their computers more and have them in the real world more, my word, you've changed the world.
I think you can look to the bright future of brain rot in Gen Z. There's a 16-year-old, 14-year-old.
I've got an 18-year-old. Yeah.
And they don't like the millennial Instagram heavy filter manufactured aesthetic. But that's how we computed it. And I think that is one of the cleanest ways to look at how tech has been, which is that highly processed, highly computerized, highly digitized, highly structured, perfect, beautiful. That is us being machines and trying to appease our overlords, the algorithms. And I think, Elon Musk with Twitter, you can see some of that abandonment in the algorithm. We're going to, if you use a hashtag, we don't need, do you remember why we invented these? Chris Messina granted us a hashtag because it used to just be a never-ending stream of text that you could not sort through. And there was a conference running and there was no way to organize that information. So he did the thing and Twitter adopted it. And then you could actually make it make sense. Millennials love organizing things, keeping their boxes for their old iPhones. We love this stuff. You don't need to do that anymore. The algorithms are competent and capable enough to surface. I have questions about my
TikTok
Twitter,
feed.
all my algorithms. I'm very confused about sometimes. But then you look to the younger generation. Sunny showed up and was like, Jasmine just asked me for a disposable camera.
Horrified.
And
why was
my kids love disposable cameras too.
But
it's wild.
She's got this device that can take an infinite number of pictures, but she's saying that the 20 that are on this camera are going to be the most valuable. She's going to pay for that. She's going to develop it. She's going to hang up. What's she going to do with the stuff in the phone? Nothing.
The cloud.
Yeah.
It's in the cloud.
And I think that's when you realize we've,